Hello, dear World of Warcraft friends. Welcome back to a new video on my channel. Today we're talking about the player numbers in Mythic Plus in World of Warcraft. Now we have the numbers from last week and we've reached an absolute low point. By now, World of Warcraft Midnight has lost more players than all the seasons in World of Warcraft The War Within. We're now down by over 80 players, and that's about a month before the new season starts. Not exactly uplifting numbers, but let's take a look at the whole situation. As I said, I'll try to hold back my own opinions a bit more in the future, so form your own opinion. Feel free to write in the comments what you think about it. The only thing I can and will say is that a decline is pretty normal. So there's no need to paint doomsday scenarios here. In the end, with the transition to this seasonal concept, it's natural that World of Warcraft is also designed so that many players come at the start of a new season. Then you just put the game aside for a while, and when a new season and new content come out, you jump back in. So that's not entirely unusual, and other seasonal games, for example Fellowship, also have to deal with this phenomenon. Other than that, I should mention that we're now playing a healer at 3400 rating on my second channel. My juicy 250 Illville Resto Shaman is in action there, and I've just healed my first level 10 keys with him. If you don't want to miss this journey, feel free to check out the channel, link in the video description. Also, feel free to subscribe here, I'd really appreciate your support. And yeah, with that, let's get into the current numbers. And here we can see how things are looking right now. You can see here the seasons of Midnight and the War Within, and you can see the absolute numbers here. So, for example, in the first week, there were 3.3 million runs in War Within, and for example, 2.4 million. What you have to keep in mind is that Blizzard only made the numbers from China available with the War Within, because the servers there were shut down for a while. That's why these numbers also exclude China, so you can compare everything better. And here we see that at the start of the season, there were more runs than in the entire last expansion. So, 3.3 million runs. The second best figure was just under 2.5 million in the War Within Season 1. But since then, we've lost quite a lot of players. The whole thing has now dropped to 570,576 in the past week. Only the War Within Season 3 was worse, with 417,000 runs. And if you remember, that was the season when, among other things, Legion Remix was going on. That's when the new add-on was about to launch. So basically, yes, the season when generally not that many people were playing anymore. Compared to the first season of The War Within, that's about 66,000 fewer runs. However, at launch, Midnight had almost 1 million more runs, or at least 900,000. The whole thing becomes comparable if you look at the percentage values. So, The War Within lost 74.3% of its players in Mythic Plus from launch to week 14. Here in Midnight, we're now at minus 83.1%. And here too, worse than the War Within Season 3. At that point, they had lost 82.5% of the players. At least you can say, somewhat positively, the curve has flattened a bit. So within the last week, the player loss has only increased by about 1.5%. That's pretty okay. We've seen bigger jumps here in other seasons. But of course, it's no surprise right now when you see that hardly any keys are listed, and at certain times it becomes very, very difficult to play. That's simply because we have very, very few players compared to the beginning. And you also have to take into account the people who are most likely to play. Over 55%, as we'll see in a moment, of the players are hanging around in 10 and 12 keys. That means everything below that is very, very difficult to even find people for. Here we see the runs. The most popular dungeon this week was Pit of Saren with 150,000 runs. In last place was Mysara Cavern. But all dungeons have a completion rate or an in-time rate of over 90%. Overall, we have a 92.77% in-time rate. That's very, very strong. So you can see here as well, people have learned. there are fewer and fewer depleted keys or untimed runs. It gets important or interesting here, specifically how are people distributed across the Keystone levels. Here we see Keystone levels, the completed keys, and those done in time. And what percentage of all keys that represents. We can see here, if you're currently leveling up a fresh character, 9 keys only make up 1.7% of the whole thing. 31 are 10 keys, 22 are 12 keys. And there are simply more 20 keys being played than 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 keys. Or 4 keys or 3 keys. 2.39% are 20 keys. That's higher than all keys from level 2 to 9 individually. And that also makes it very, very difficult. The people who are still playing now, as you can see, are mostly those who are either pushing hard and are in this 16 plus range, or it's the people who might still be gearing their next character, running in the 10 to 12 range, still farming crests. But for anyone who wants to jump back in now, it's a really bad time because there are very, very few keys opening up. Just look at that. There were 3,691 level 3 keys in 1 week. That's really, really few. I mean, we have almost twice as many level 22 keys as level 3 keys. And that really says something. So yeah, all in all, the player numbers have gone down significantly. People are mostly staying in the level 10 range and above. If someone were to ask me now, hey, I haven't played in a while, is it still worth it? Personally, I think it's always worth it because you can always learn something. But if you're looking to find a lot of players and so on, then it would probably make more sense to wait for the new season, which will most likely start in August. So around mid to late August, around the 20th, it should be that week. Yeah, what do you guys think? Have you noticed it too? Do we have too few players in Mythic Plus? Feel free to write it in the comments. And with that, thanks for watching. See you in the next video and take care.